Shalom and good Erev Shabbos to everyone. I hope you are all well and staying warm in our Texas winter. Today, I'd like to share some thoughts about the future, about the light at the end of the tunnel that we are talking about and that we are hoping for. So, I'll start with a question that Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch asks on this week's Torah reading and the prohibition of eating the gid hanasha, the sciatic nerve is what we refer to it as, after Yaakov has his fight with the mystery angel. The Torah tells us that Yaakov was injured in that spot, and therefore, al kain, we are not allowed to eat that sciatic nerve. And Rav Hirsch is troubled by this. It can't possibly be that the reason we do not eat the sciatic nerve is just to remember what happened to Yaakov. There must be something more. And Rav Hirsch discovers something fascinating. He says that the word nasheh, gid hanasheh, is from the same root as the word nosheh, which is a creditor. But, Rav Hirsch points out, a good creditor does not stay a creditor forever. And that's what Rav Hirsch says is the hallmark, is the key to understanding Yaakov's encounter, his struggle with the angel. It's true he is hampered, but Rav Hirsch says, but not forever. Like a creditor who pays his debts and moves on, Yaakov is able to move past this eerie confrontation and heal. And as I reflect on this story, I think it can serve as a model for us. Yaakov, at that moment, was in a hard fight, and he was wounded. Yet he emerges from that clash, and he seems to thrive afterwards. And for many months, like Yaakov, we have also been in a struggle no less serious than Yaakov's. And like Yaakov, we have been wounded. And like Yaakov, we are bewildered, or we were bewildered and caught off guard. But like it did for Yaakov, the sun is slowly rising, and we can get a glimpse of the end. So what was it that allowed Yaakov to heal? So I'd like to suggest three things. Right when the fight is about to end, the angel says to Yaakov, "Let me go." And Yaakov says, "I will not let you go until you bless me." This is a strange request. What does Yaakov want? So I think what Yaakov is seeking is some understanding. He wants to understand what this fight was all about. And I think that's something that we also should do to help our healing. Like Yaakov, we have come face to face with our own mortality. What does this new closeness and vulnerability mean to us? Like Yaakov, we should not walk away from this encounter until we seek out some meaning. Yaakov feared losing his family members. How has this pandemic altered our family relationships and the appreciation that we have for family? Some of us have not seen family for almost a year. How has that changed us? How have we spent time like Yaakov contemplating that? The second aspect of Yaakov's healing was when he realized he was not who he thought he was. At one point, Yaakov is told by this angel that his name is no longer Yaakov, his name is Yisrael. All this time, Yaakov thought he was Yaakov, and the angel is telling him, no, you are not. One of the backbones of Judaism is the possibility of change. The Rambam writes that tshuva is our ability to say, I am no longer that person. And so I submit that this pandemic has been our struggle with the angel and our chance to gain a new appreciation or understanding of who we really are. How has this pandemic changed our perspective? What do we value now more? What do we value now less? In Yaakov's case, he was always trying to win, especially when it came to his fight with Esav. But that is no longer the case. By this time, he has already sent to Esav massive amounts of livestock, and in the morning, he is going to refer to Esav as his master, and he will refer to himself as Esav's servant. Yaakov's priorities change. There was never a wrong time for self-examination, But there are times like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the days in between which are especially focused on repentance. And perhaps we should consider the months leading to an improved coronavirus reality as our period of introspection. And finally, the third thing Yaakov learned that helped him heal was that not everything is in his control. When the fight is about to end, he demands to know the name of the angel who is fighting with him. And the angel says, "You cannot know my name." Not everything can be known by mortals. The angel is telling Yaakov that as much as you try to control this situation, as much as you can try to control the birthright, who you married, Lavan, and your meeting with Esav, there are things that are beyond your control. And Yaakov learns the lesson because the next thing he says is, "I realize that I have seen God." Yaakov realizes this is God all along in control and not him. It's hard for us to move on when we think we can control everything, when we are struggling against forces greater than ourselves. The idea that Yaakov emerged from this episode healed is supported by Rashi's understanding of a verse that otherwise may suggest that Yaakov was permanently wounded. Vayizrach lo hashemesh kasher avar et Pinuel v'hutzolea al yerecho. The sun rose on him as he passed over Pinuel, and he limped from his thigh. Rashi says, Haya Tsolea. When the sun rose, he had been limping, but the sun rose and healed him. Earlier we read that Yaakov was afraid of the upcoming encounter with Esav. Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetzer lo. Yaakov was greatly afraid and distressed. But now, after his confrontation with the angel, after he learned these three important lessons, he is no longer afraid. He has learned what it takes to overcome trauma. He is now armed with the knowledge that wounds heal. And this could be helpful to us. Our formula also of how wounds could heal and how we could perhaps be ready to make the most of what comes next. Yaakov learned that he cannot take the situation for granted. We should not take this situation for granted, and we should seek out lessons. Yaakov learned that he was not who he thought he was, and he realized that his priorities changed, and we should wonder how our priorities may have changed. And Yaakov realized that he is not in control of everything. And once we realize that we are not in control, perhaps we start struggling against the immovable, and that helps us heal as well. May we be blessed with a healing Shabbat and a healed future. Shabbat Shalom.